Just want to do an informal poll here. How many of you all have pre-ordered an HTC Vive or an Oculus Rift? Okay, that's fascinating. Yes, Vimal, of course we know you have. And how about any individuals who have a Gear VR? Okay, interesting. So just for the folks at home, no hands have raised the room. Now, how many of you all have or have tried a Google Cardboard, right? Okay, so this is why we as journalists are deploying to Cardboard first, right? Because right now that's where the eyeballs are. And how about HoloLens? Anybody on the waves for HoloLens? Yeah. So, and that's coming as well. So we are allowing people to essentially step inside the stories. And how did we get there? I got into VR through AR, so through the Google Glass program, augmented reality. We were using Glass to do live streaming tours for terminally ill and aging veterans who weren't able to physically travel to see their memorials. So we would put Glass on, we'd open up a hangout and allow other individuals from around the world to join that hangout, and we'd walk through the memorials and show some of those people who weren't able to physically travel. When Glass ended, we needed a new solution, and VR certainly was that new solution because it allowed us to essentially put those memorials and all those things that are special to those individuals on their face. So our first project was with Google and with Jaunt, Veterans United Foundation, StoryUP, Ghost Machine VR, created an experience for veterans, and you can learn more about it at honoreverywhere.com. It's on YouTube, it's on a Cardboard app as well. If you all have Google Cardboard, you really need to be sharing that experience with the World War II veterans in your life, because we are losing those veterans at a rate of 500 a day nationwide. And sadly, most of them have never seen their memorial. So that is the program how we got into VR and VR journalism with StoryUP. So we are a social enterprise, and I'll talk a little bit about what that means in a bit. We create 360-degree video stories for journalism, for brands, and we're also creating a lot of immersive video products via an app. We are one part journalism studio, a separate brand studio. We're kind of like a little newspaper, except our classified ads are in VR, and our programming is in VR as well. So that is one of the ways that we are funded. That and through partnerships as well. So Nick talked a little bit about this, but it used to be that we were outside of the video, right, all the time, viewing that through a fixed rectangle. And now through VR and Cardboard and all these headsets that are coming out on the market, we have the ability to be inside the video. So that's the difference. You can view it in a lot of different ways. You don't have to have a headset. Cardboard is the gateway drug to VR, right? And you can start by looking at it on your PC, dragging your finger around the mobile as well. So why virtual reality video? There's a phenomenon with 360-degree video. And when I say VR, I'm talking about a variety of categories. I'm talking about not only VR video, but I'm also talking about computer-generated experiences, CGI experiences. So when I say VR, those are the two different things that I'm talking about. Specifically to 360-degree video or VR video, studies are showing that it increases the time spent watching by 5 times, and increases the viewing frequency by 6 times, and increases the likelihood of sharing by 7.5 times. So that bears out anecdotally in some of the street team work that we're doing, where we're actually taking VR to nursing homes and assisted living centers. We have these 80 and 90-year-old individuals who have the headset on their face. They take it off after watching an 8-minute experience and say, "Can I watch that again?" And why? Because they're afraid they missed something. All of the immersive storytelling, because you can look everywhere, they're thinking they missed something. So it increases the frequency that you watch it, and the duration as well, which is great metrics for marketers. Why now? 65% of virtual reality revenue will derive from video content by 2020. All of these headsets are coming out. By 2020, these are some of the predictions that there will be more than 25 million of these screens. None of you all in this room had your hands up. It'll be interesting to take that poll again next year and see how many hands go up. That you have the Vive, you have the Sony PlayStation, Project Morpheus, and also the Oculus Rift that's coming out. All of these headsets are going to need content. Right now in the virtual reality market, people are creating hardware. They're creating the picks and the axes. And now we're about to hit the content wave. So VR content, it's king. Goldman Sachs predicts VR AR will be an $80 billion market by 2025. This particular study from Tractica, $22 billion by 2020. So some crazy, insane numbers. I don't know if they're right. They did the studies, but I just share them with you to let you know that those are some of the possibilities that they say could happen. VR analytics and virtual reality video analytics are really important to marketers. So this quote, this is a heat map actually from some companies called Retinad, and they do VR video analytics. Also, Thrillbox is another platform, and some other companies are in stealth mode. But these will help journalists know where people are viewing their stories, and also help in the immersive storytelling process. So all of these heat sinks up there are all the places where people are looking around the screen. And why is that important? Because we're about to embark with VR video a data palooza, right? It used to be that we only had view counts and time duration watching for video. Now we have the ability to know in that video exactly where they were looking and what they were looking at. Were they looking at your product? So Scott Radin of 3Q Digital says the potential data palooza could dwarf the number and kind of data points that marketers now acquire from websites, mobile apps, and other sources. So VR, and Nick, alluded this a little bit, is kind of like sausage. It tastes great, and it's really neat to experience, but no one wants to see it being made. It requires, we use at least 6 different software programs in order to put it together, and it is a very complicated process. This is one of the very things that we stitched, and you can see that one of our cameras had a setting issue. It was on 2.7 instead of 2.7 4:3, and you get these black triangles of death that we call them around when you have different settings. The more cameras that you have, the more multiple and opportunities for error. So it's a really difficult experience right now that will only get better. But with VR, we are moving really from a one-man band experience. It used to be, with the one-man band, reporter, shooter, editor, they could do it all, right? I got this, we're able to do it all. But with VR, you're really moving from the one-man band to the orchestra, because you know what, folks? We cannot carry any more things on our back, right? With VR, you need a storyteller and a producer. For a lot of experiences, you need a CG or a special effects artist. Spatial audio, that's a whole nother topic in itself. People are doing spatial mixes, positional tracking. And by the way, we have a lot of these VR experiences if you'd like to experience what spatial audio is in headsets, and we'll have them out there in one of the breaks. You need a Unity or an Unreal developer if you're going to do any kind of CGI experience, gamers. And you also need a cinematographer or shooter in order to do that. And big key pie piece right here, which is the reason why we look to partner with a lot of news organizations, is a distribution partner. Because it doesn't matter if you create it if nobody sees it. So all of those things. And we are adding those pie pieces as we speak, with all of the different inputs that are coming out into VR, like vestibular audio, that pie just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So we're moving from the one-man band to the VR orchestra. So let's talk a little bit about distribution and how some individuals are, how we're sharing these things. There are flat apps, right, that you can download on your mobile phone that are flat. YouTube is by far the most popular VR platform out there. Video, Shrimp Eyes, Little Star, and Facebook are some other platforms where you can experience virtual reality and virtual reality video. It will be interesting to see what happens, because a lot of entities, including ourselves, are exploring bypassing that flat app and going toward a mobile site that triggers web VR and web GL experiences where you don't have to download a flat app. And it reduces the barrier to entry to your content, because you're pointing people to a mobile site and instead of having them download an app. So pay attention to that trend, because it's something that's happening, and you're going to see a lot more of your websites that are in that web VR, WebGL space, as opposed to just being that flat space. So speaking of distribution, we do a lot of old school distribution, because in our area here in the Silicon Prairie, very few individuals have heard about virtual reality or know what it is. So we have street teams. I see a lot of people with our street teams here, and we go out into nursing homes, assisted living centers, the Boys and Girls Club, and share with them, hey, have you heard about what this is? Would you be willing to share this with a veteran in your community? Old school distribution, and that's the way that we're reaching a lot of those individuals. So let's talk about revenue streams a little bit for virtual reality journalism companies. We do virtual reality video storytelling production, we do a lot of consulting, and we do a lot of product sales as well, and continuing to refine those products. But because we are a social enterprise, the bulk of what we do are impact streams. So we have our Honor Everywhere program. We do a lot of storytelling for nonprofits and also for schools as well. This is the CPS STEAM bus at Columbia Public Schools. On that bus, they are training individuals to be immersive storytellers. They are training people about virtual reality, and these are kids in kindergarten. How cool is that? We're excited to be a part of that project as well. One of our first experiences we did allowed people to step inside the places where some of our homeless veterans sleep, and experience what that might be like, and then hear from some of those veterans who are actually experiencing that right now as a project in order to raise awareness for a new homeless veterans home, an initiative called NoOneLeftBehind.com right here in Columbia. And again, pairing new school distribution, yes, it airs on YouTube, but also old school distribution, taking it, putting it in the hands of individuals in the community, trade shows, wherever, and say, put this on your face and watch this and experience this. This is a project in Zambia that will come out on the Washington Post in a couple weeks. One of the stories that we did in the fixed frame world was about a group of individuals who have to crawl on the ground in a lot of these countries because they lack mobility, right? They don't have access to all-terrain wheelchairs that allow them to go over the jungle floor or the bush. So they literally crawl on the ground because they don't have mobility. So, with VR, we will be able to take our cameras to Zambia, capture right from their perspective what they're seeing on the ground, why they can't go through it, what that's like to live low on the ground and have people constantly looking down on you. And if we have some time, I can show you a little bit of that, but we have it in headset, and it's way better to experience it in headset, the trailer for it, than it is viewing it through the fixed frame. So I'd be happy to share that with you. Again, just an example of some of the cameras and angled cameras to get that perspective of some of those individuals who are having to crawl. We also partnered with this project in a collaboration with Mizzou's drone journalism program. So we're suspending these VR rigs from drones. And why? Because drones are tailor-made for VR, because you can have slow, controlled movement, and it is easier to stitch out than if you had a tripod on the ground and you were trying to drag it or use a jib or something like that. So drones are tailor-made for VR. It does make it a little bit more difficult to stitch, but the pictures are really beautiful. Also, future collaboration with SPHERICA. You should really check out their drone footage. There is a disseminated building right here in Russia, and you're able to go all the way around it and see all the way around from that perspective. And if we have time, I can show you a little bit more of that. Another project that we did that allowed people to step inside the story of someone who had experienced stroke, see not only what they see, their blurred vision, what did they feel, the aphasia, the inability to talk. We placed people inside the MRI, and that was a collaboration with the American Heart Association. VR is also non-collaborative in that you play a lot of hide and seek, right? Where you are drawing distance from your interview subjects. The crew will hide behind trees a lot or bushes a lot because you don't always want to get in the shot. Now, obviously, there are exceptions to every one of those rules. If you're working with a translator or something like that, that's really difficult. You need to be there to ask follow-up questions. But for the bulk of majorities of the interviews that we do are self-interviews. We tell them, hey, these are the questions we want you to discuss. The camera is a person. We're going to go in the other room. Go ahead and, interview yourself, essentially. And what we're finding is that those interviews are way more candid than anything that we've ever gotten in the fixed frame world. There's no reporter behind the camera with a notepad looking at them, nodding their head in agreement. And I don't know if it frees up the person or what, but these interviews that we're getting are really candid, and it's like they're just, alone, talking about their experience and not necessarily having to deal with a reporter asking those questions. Vestibular input is another input inside virtual reality video that we all should pay attention to because it allows you to move with the video. So imagine watching a video, we were here on a racetrack, and then they turn on the system and it actually sways your body back and forth. It works with nerve waves, which is kind of exciting and a little scary at the same time. It's not available to the public yet, but just another input for VR beyond the video and beyond the audio that's already happening. Haptics in VR, right? We're going to be able to touch our video and not just be able to hear it and see it and feel it. And then don't laugh, but smell-o-vision is coming. This is a Nirvana helmet that actually comes preloaded with the Oculus Rift, and it has scents in it that you put it on and you're actually able to smell it. So it's becoming a very visceral experience. And I think we'll have to put smell on channel 4, sound on channel 2, the haptics on 1, and then who knows where we'll put the vestibular input on it. Bottom line is that our world is changing. This is the next computing platform. Just as we had to make our websites responsive for mobile, we're also going to have to make them responsive for VR, because we're going to be able to step inside those websites. And when we're inside those websites, all the things that we're doing with VR journalism, all the content that we're creating is future-proofing our content, because you are hopping inside those sites and people aren't gonna wanna watch a fixed frame anymore. They're gonna be inside some of that video. So what's next? The metaverse, the ability to walk around a room in room scale VR, that you can actually walk around a video and pick up some 3D objects with some of these hand controls. Hand controls in VR that you won't even have to have it be in mobile VR. You won't even have to have it be a tethered VR experience like the HTC Vive. In mobile VR, you're able to manipulate it either through a Leap motion controller or something like that, 3D objects. Sulan is coming out with an all-in-one headset that doesn't even work with the mobile device. So it may appear that we already bypassed that mobile VR field. I don't know. Light field cameras, right? The ability to walk through that video. Project Tango is doing some fascinating things. Keep an eye on them. And also Tilt Brush, the ability to draw and paint in VR, which could be the killer app. Book recommendation, Ernest Cline, Ready Player One. It's all about the metaverse and the world that you step into. If you all are fascinated in this, definitely read it. It's an interesting book and also a scary book as well about what might happen when we are plugged into some of these places. So bottom line, this is in my attorney's office, by the way. They're experiencing VR for the very first time. We are turning a really big corner. It's fast. And it's gonna get weird. That's from Johnny Ross at VR LA, and I really think that's a great way to describe it. So with that, I will entertain any more questions that you have. And if there's anybody who has never experienced VR in cardboard, do we have any VR virgins in the room? Yes, all right, I'll give it to you. There you go, thank you. And I think we're out of time for questions unless you're gonna ask them in 45 seconds.
One quick one back here, so, right.
Sarah, with the asking the questions with no reporter in the room, have you found in the work that I've done, I found a lot of the best responses have been from follow-ups? And so have you gone back through and wished that you had asked something else, or what's the strategy for that?
Yeah, we're monitoring it remotely with a Sony cam in the other side of the room. So obviously, yes, there are advantages to being in the room when you can ask follow-ups, but we come back in the room after they're done and ask it, or we shout from around the corner. Eventually, there's going to be a workflow. We've also played with putting an IFB through their ear, through a phone, in order to talk with them as well. But all those workflows definitely need to be worked out. So thank you for your time.